thank you for joining us this morning on this rather warm and soon to be warmer day in sunny Leamington Spa. We've got some real experience here in terms of hundreds of years of experience within the games industry. Even though none of us is more than 29 years old, it's amazing. So what we're going to talk about today, we are talking about the way that the games industry, as you will all know, has fixed companies. That's amazing, that's wonderful. Some of these good people work for those companies, whereas other people will be working for art service providers, code service providers, service teams that are supporting those in making their projects, and also freelancers. Alex is a good example of this, not giving away too many spoilers, but we've each worked either with a big company or with an outsourced team or freelancers in our business. I've got the wonderful experience of having a time as a freelancer. I didn't like it enough because I wasn't getting enough personal contact talking to people and social, and also working with outsourced teams for the likes of Activision, but also working as a service provider to larger companies. It's not about me either. We're going to ask these wonderful people and all of their experiences, and we've got some not very grueling but more conversational questions to ask them, and we're going to bring them in now. So if we can do some quick introductions. I'm Phil Bale. I think my LinkedIn profile still says games industry person. I've been in games for 27 years this year. Still 29 years old. It's amazing. We'll start with you, Kurt.
Mike? Yes, you need that.
Hello.
Sorry.
Do need the mic to speak, turns out. I'm a technical director for Code Wizards. I've been in the industry for 15 years. Sorry, I should also mention my name's Kurt Anderson.
Okay.
It's kind of important, turns out. I've been in the industry for 15 years. I started at Multiplay, went on to work at Unity, from the provider services side of the business, and then I went into Code Wizards. Code Wizards do outsourcing for back-end services like Matchmaker and lobby systems and things like that, but we also do 24/7 DevOps as well to support games. So from my experience for this panel, I've worked with outsourcers at Unity, but also then sort of jumped the fence and working on the other side of things.
Brilliant, thank you. And Alex?
Hello. God, okay, maybe I won't put it so close to my face. Hello, my name is Alex Darby. I have been making video games since 1996, probably about 3 months longer than Phil, I reckon. And I'm also 29. So I've worked for publishers, I've worked for smaller developers, I've founded a couple of companies, I've currently sort of freelance mostly, have been doing that since 2014. I'm a programmer. I've been a designer and an educator as well, but that isn't strictly relevant to this talk, so we won't bother with those. I mostly port games for people these days, mostly, but I do whatever people ask me to if they're willing to pay my day rate, generally speaking, within reason, programming stuff. Here you go, Phil.
Brilliant, thank you. Vicky?
So hello, I'm Vicky Boyce and I work for Third Kind Games as a lead designer. I've been working in the industry for about 18 years for companies like Rebellion and Jagex and Radiant Worlds. So for this panel, Third Kind Games is a co-development studio that was established in 2016, and last year we were acquired by the Virtuous Network, which are a global co-development industry body. I guess for this, I could probably talk about how I feel things have changed between working in co-dev space versus working for an in-house studio in the past, and just offer my insights of what it's like to be a developer actually within co-dev and working with other developers on their games and on their products going forward.
Perfect, thank you. And Gareth?
Hello everybody. This chair's very rocky. My name's Gareth Harwood. I am the content director and co-founder at Maverick Games. I've been in the industry about 16, 17 years. I've worked mainly in the tech art space, but moved into leadership and management. So in my role now, I look after a number of the content teams. So a lot of the art teams that we have at Maverick Games, and a lot of the technical art teams as well. As part of that, we outsource quite a lot of what we do to try and support the team. So I've got a lot of experience at Maverick Games outsourcing, but Previously, I was also at Playground Games for 11 years, and there I was a technical art director, and we outsourced a lot there as well, and a lot of the contracts came through me if it was for technical art or for some of the content that we have there.
Thank you very much. Cheers. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Someone else needs to hold that. That should give you an idea that there's a lot of experience here. And in terms of you, we are going to turn to you for questions at the end. We will allow time for it. It's a shame this year because we've normally got a little light here. So if someone at the back can just like wave a hand and shout at me, throw things, not too heavy, and then we can make sure there's time at the end for Q&A as well. So in terms of, sorry, Mike's landed on you, Kurt. So in terms of the questions, they're fairly broad, and it's more about getting the personal experiences from our panelists today. It's about how they have found working in the games industry in or with the capacities that we're talking about today in terms of that. In terms of terminology, I have written myself a note. We're going to talk about co-development, outsource team, service provider, freelancer, contractor. Sometimes they can mean the same things. Sometimes they're slightly different. You can be a contractor working for a service team. You can be a contractor working for or a freelancer working for a company all by yourself. You can be working in a company under fixed-term contracts. So they're all synonymous. They're all meaning the same thing. But any questions on that, let me know. I do appreciate we have a range of people here. Some of you with even more experience than us, which is amazing. And we've also got some students as well. So if there's any questions at the end, either ask, shout out, or if you want to, just come and find us afterwards. And you may even be able to get some contact details out of us for some Q&A afterwards as well. We're always happy to answer questions. Kurt, in terms of using freelancers and outsourced teams in that capacity, how do you feel? What are the benefits of, why do people even use these services?
So there's a few things to consider here. It depends on the size of the studio, right? And it depends on the problem that you're trying to solve. So for example, if you look at the ops space, for instance, say you're running a game that is massively multiplayer or something like that, you need to spin up an ops team potentially quickly, potentially a long time in advance. Do you have the skill set internally? Do you need to have management? You got overhead? Is it follow the sun? Like, you've got all these things you need to think about. Or you could just use a company that specializes in that kind of work. So it depends on scale. It depends on keeping it in-house, because there are advantages of doing work like that in-house, or technical artistry and things like that. It ultimately comes down to oversight and what you're trying to get out of it, I think. Okay,
brilliant. Alex, for you, I mean, in terms of having, being on the other side of it for certainly the recent part of your career, why do people come to you? What is it that you can provide? Opportunity to sell yourself.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, why do people... Basically, the tricky thing about being freelance is obviously no one's giving you money unless you've got a contract, right? And so the first thing that I'd want to say about I should be wearing a survivorship bias meme T-shirt with the aeroplane with the bullet holes everywhere, but the cockpit and the engines, right? Because I've been very fortunate, right? In many, many ways, I've got, but I've also worked for a lot of very good companies. I've had a lot of specific experiences that set me up to do the job that I do. And porting is one of those things that, generally speaking, if someone's made a PC game and they've put it on Steam and they've done all right with it, they will go, oh, God, we want to put this on consoles, but we don't know how. And at that point, generally, someone will say, ooh, I know someone who does that, and that person's me, often. Probably about a tenth of the time it's me, and that's often enough to mean that I'm turning down work most of the time. So I'm unbelievably fortunate, and I probably shouldn't really, I haven't really ever had to look for leads, because I know a lot of people who run companies. I've worked with a lot of people. I got into freelance when I'd already been making games for nearly 20 years. So at that point, you've got enough experience and you know enough people that the network of humans who you can sort of poke to sort of see what happens is large. It's a much different proposition if you're doing it from scratch yourself. The main advantage to hiring me is that the same thing Kurt said, essentially, if you don't know how to port games, I do know how to port games and I can just do it. And it will cost you a lot less. If you're a small indie title, for example, and your publisher is saying, we're going to put it on consoles for you, but it'll cost you £50,000 per platform on the profit and loss for this game, I could do it for a lot cheaper than that. And so for the indie companies come to me because I make their games more likely to be profitable, essentially.
Yeah, great, thank you. Are you happy with this question, or do you want me to pass straight over to Gareth, considering...
I don't know what the question is.
So it's, why use outsourcers? Why use external developers?
I don't know, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so I'd say for me, I use them for a few reasons. One of them is the specialist reason, that you might have somebody, it's quite a recent thing for us that we've had to do recently, is hair for characters. It's something that is very specific, and there aren't many people who are the best that they can be in that role. And we went and found a freelancer that would be able to do hair, and worked with them for a while. They actually became a Maverick after a while, and they now joined the company. But for the time that they were freelance, that was the reason we used them, is because they were the best at what they could be, and to hire somebody like that is very difficult. I'd say the other thing that we use freelancers for quite a lot, when it's not necessarily a specialist role, is being able to produce things quickly and to quality and to quantity. And when we're looking at these types of freelancers, we're normally looking at slightly larger companies, slightly larger groups. But the great thing that comes with doing that is you don't just hire an artist, or you don't just hire 10 artists. What you actually do is you hire 10 artists, 2 senior artists, 2 lead artists, a producer, somebody who manages all of that contract as well from a legal point of view, which means that if I wanted to spin something up today internally and say, right, I need these objects built, this is how many people I think it's going to take, I'm going to have to go interview all of those people. I'm going to have to find them desks. I'm going to have to pay their wages, which obviously is what we do for an external contractor as well. But I'm also going to have to pay their national insurance and do their healthcare, and I'm going to have to do things like, do they need relocation costs to come to the office? So all of that adds up, but also all of that takes time. So if I need something today, it's often good to either look for a specialist or look for a team that is already there, already spun up, already knows their pros and cons, already knows who is good at one thing and maybe where people need support. And I can just speak to them and say, who have you got? Who's the best at this? And they can give me the best people there. So it's really beneficial for us, I think, to move at speed, but also to get the best of the best when we need it.
Brilliant, thank you. If you could pass to Vicky, please, because this question kind of bleeds into my second question, which is that, so for you and your experience, you've been working at a company which is then being acquired by another company, so supported in terms of higher management structure and reliability, but it's also opened up another element for the company. Can you talk more about that? Because the next question is about the benefits of being a freelancer versus working for a company, whereas you're in a position which your company has been acquired and now you're part of a bigger thing. So how have you found that?
So it's been good. So we were like a smaller co-dev, finding our own contract, our own work for our people and teams to work with. But now we're under a big umbrella. We have the benefits of doing that for ourselves, but we also have the luxury of, if there are other projects within the broader network that need extra help or support from our teams, then we can help on those projects, and vice versa. If we find that we're on a project and they need a specialist that we could either train up ourselves, which will take a little bit of time, or there's somebody else within that broader network, then we can just bring them in straight away. So yeah, working, like being acquired by Virtuous has definitely opened up a lot of doors, a lot of avenues, also potentials to work on a broader range of games and titles as well, like internationally as well. So it's definitely opened up a lot of avenues. It's given us a lot of benefits. It's also given us a lot of insight. So people are also sharing what they've learned as well. So it's actually making our teams more skilled and more experienced by doing that, and vice versa. We then can share our skills and experience with the Virtuous network as well, and they can benefit as well. So mutually, like for both of us, it's definitely been beneficial.
Brilliant, excellent. Thank you very much. So continuing on from that, in terms of the differences, so both of you have worked within companies and you've both worked as either service provider or as a freelancer. What are the big differences? I mean, for people who might be considering it as a career or feeling that maybe this is the way that they want to go in the future.
Okay, yeah. So the main difference with being a freelancer is obviously if I don't have a contract, I don't get paid. And I don't get paid holiday. I don't have health benefits unless I use some of the money that I make from my contracts to give myself health benefits, that sort of thing. I don't have a pension unless I pay into it myself. There's essentially the advantage of being a freelancer is you can do what you like, but the disadvantage of being a freelancer is you have to do all of the stuff that you don't want to do that your company does, right? So the big advantage for working in a company is you can turn up, you can do your job, you can get paid, you can go home, you don't have to think about it. If you're a freelancer, you generally have to worry about it more, probably, I would think. But again, I'm in a ludicrously privileged position, which I'm happy to admit, and my life's generally relatively pain-free. I don't want to say that too loudly in case the universe hears me.
Touch wood.
Yeah, I am. There you go. Let's have some wood. There we go, that's good. But yeah, I really prefer being a freelancer because if I just want to take a month off, I can. That is also a downside to it, is that if I want to take a month off and then suddenly nobody wants me to work for them, then that's 2 months that I've accidentally taken off, So, yeah, I don't know, really. For me personally, I think what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to make my own decisions about my life and stuff, I much prefer about being a freelancer. If I'm doing a contract and I don't like the people I'm working for, I'll go, oh no, I need to take another contract and leave your company now. So whereas if you're in a job, you can't really do that very easily. So,
And tax returns as well. Just to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Come on, tax returns, yay!
I was going to say, Alex, maybe talk a little bit about the stability of the industry as a freelancer. That would be really interesting to me.
Yeah, so there is one thing actually, but that is super relevant, is that the weird thing is, it sort of works both ways. So you could say that, because at the moment everything's a bit up in the air, right, for companies, and people are laying people off and all that sort of stuff. But weirdly, you'd think that would make things bad for freelancers, but I find that it doesn't. What normally happens is that because companies are laying people off, they still need work doing, but they don't want to have to go and hire them. Like Gareth said, they'll just go, oh, help, there's a freelancer, let's pay them to do it. So, it swings and roundabouts, right? It can be bad, it can be good. You have to be in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. There was something really specific that I wanted to say when you had me on. I've completely forgotten what it was now.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, I'll give it back to you.
So from my perspective, it's slightly different. So I've never been a freelancer. I've dealt with outsourcing companies on both sides of the fence. And to Alex's point, what is really relevant is that when larger corporations, they downsize, they still have the same basic needs to ship games. And they don't want to compromise on quality. So an outsourcing partner is seen as a lower risk. So if you are part as a bigger outsourcing provider, even as a freelancer or a contractor into that outsourcing provider, you can gain stability and work on a lot of different games. The downside, I think Vicky and Gareth mentioned, is that ultimately you have to do some of the bad jobs that nobody else wants to do. But hopefully you've specialized enough and had enough training in those specific things to just knock it out of the park every time. So one of the points I was going to make around this is that depending on who you're working with, that kind of format could be a blessing or a curse. So from my experience, there's two types of people that want something from an outsourcing provider, and ultimately they tell you exactly what they want. It's do this exact thing, fix this exact problem, and a lot of people like to work that way. It's here's exactly what you need to do. And the other style is we don't know. So that's when you go to an expert and you get the architecture you really understand and you work through it. And depending on the type of person you are, you might prefer one or the other. You might want a bit more freedom. And when you go into those contracts, that might be frustrating even to not have that freedom to be able to think outside the box and just do these bullet points and move on. Or it might be super comforting to just do the same thing every time. It depends on the type of person you are.
What about aspects and Gareth as well? Sorry, go on. Yes, go on.
So the thing I was going to say is that the one thing about freelance, because you may remember from my intro, I left the mainstream industry when I worked in education, and then I don't know if I actually mentioned any of this.
You did.
I did. Okay, good. But then I left education in 2014, hoping to ride the coattails of the like indie invasion of Steam and get rich, right, and be an indie developer. But what happened is some friends of mine had a game and they needed it porting, and I was like, actually, if I do that, I get paid, and it doesn't matter if the game does well. Right, so like that's the other advantage about doing what we do, is it doesn't matter to me whether the game I work on does well. I mean, it looks good on my CV if it gets good reviews, right? And I put it on my website and say I worked on this game. And if it bombs, I just don't put it on my website. But I get paid either way, right? Like, so that's an advantage of being freelance.
This game succeeded because Alex worked on it. If you don't hear about it, he doesn't have to mention it. Yeah.
I didn't say that, but yeah.
Something I just wanted to check with Gareth quickly, because you're working as, in terms of content director and looking after lots of people coming in, bringing in work, and the process of choosing them as well. What about the business side of things, where you mentioned spinning up a team and the time that it takes? What about if you were to have a smaller team and then bring in, say, a team of artists, a team of programmers, a team of designers when you need them on demand for certain parts? Like we all bring in QA right at the end. What about that sort of side of things?
Yeah, it can definitely be a benefit. I think one of the things that you get is you want everybody who works on the game to be passionate about the game. They want you to believe in it in the same way that I guess your internal staff do. Sometimes doing that, it's very difficult for them to believe in it because they feel like, right, I've got this one job to do and it's 2 months and then I'm gone. So, whereas I think with a lot of the contracts that we do, we look to put in place long-term contracts with our outsourcers, and they can change, so it means that sometimes we might have 5 people with that contractor, and other times we might have 30 people with that contractor. But having that continuous contract run through means that there's always a point of contact. The project that we're making is always part of their company as well, that they're aware of. The other thing that we do quite a lot of time is we bring contractors on site. We have some contractors that work with us now who are mainly a remote studio, but their lead comes into studio and actually works in studio with us, which means that there's always a point of contact. There's always somebody there who's understanding what's happening in the studio, and it's kind of like the bridge between the outsourced team and the internal team. In my previous job, one of the things that we did is we went to outsourcers and said, okay, we want you to work with us. Here's what we want you to do. Go do it. Some of the stuff would come back and it would just miss the mark totally. And it wasn't until we visited them and actually spent a week in their studio, seeing what they were doing, seeing how the stuff was set up, seeing the processes that we're going through, we just realized that they didn't really understand the process. They didn't really understand what we're asking them to do. We're showing them a picture, hey, make this bit of art. I use an example of back in a previous job, we wanted a concrete barrier made for a popular racing driving game. And we sent pictures and reference to outsource and said, hey, we want this barrier made. And it came back exactly like this barrier. We sent them 5 different pictures of barriers, and they built the 5 individual barriers, which would have been great, apart from the barriers had graffiti on, which wasn't graffiti that we could have put in a game. And also, as soon as you put something like that in game, you're now seeing the same object over and over again, whereas what we actually wanted them to do is take those 5 barriers, take the theme of those 5 barriers, and then go build it in that way. So I think building that relationship, building that rapport, making sure that they have an understanding is very important. Doing that on small kind of individual contracts, I think is more difficult. It can happen, especially if you have an expert, but I think having a long-term engagement is important.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I follow on?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the experience that we have, when a team is like assigned to work with a company or a code dev, it's not so much that they tell us, right, this is what you want to do, go off and do it, and there's no contact ever until the project is finished, until the product, like what the outcome is finished, and then we return back to it. In the projects that I've worked on, is a case that our teams have been fully integrated with their teams. We join their communications channels, all their emails are shared. We do check-ins like maybe weekly or every weekly. If there's any questions, we're in direct contact with them straight away. So I guess maybe that's a slight difference between like I don't know if that's something that's different between co-dev and freelance or certain specific contracts, for example, where somebody is just happy, it's right, I know what you want, leave me alone, I'll get on with it sort of thing. But in my experience, we've always found it better that we are fully integrated with our partners and who we're working with. So we are fully aligned at all times, or like we try to nip any discrepancies or confusions in the bud straight away sort of thing, and just try to avoid like the conflict or potential issues further on down the line sort of thing. And most of the time, and that's worked out pretty well for us. Don't get us wrong. Sometimes things do go askew. You know, it is game dev. It's just the way it is, sort of thing. It happens in house. It can happen co-dev as well. But I think just forming that great bond and communication with your partner that you're working with, like, because you want to deliver what they want, but you also want to impart your expertise and your skills show them what you're capable of as well. So having that good integration between you as a co-dev and your partner and what they want is really, really important for developing what needs to be done for both parties, really.
So in terms of best practice and working with partners and using that, we'll say embedded a lot, using that embedded approach to have working as a co-dev partner for a larger client, for example, as you have in the past, where issues have occurred, how have you worked to fix those problems? What have you done, without naming names, any examples where an issue has occurred that you've been able to work through and how you did it?
So obviously I can't talk about specific projects or clients or anything like that, but one example that comes to mind is like a specific, they want to update a specific system for one of their projects, for example, and it was just like a broad thing. We want to update it. We want to make it all up to date. So we had some ideas, we did some brainstorming with our team, but also like relevant people on their team as well, and we all came up with all these ideas, and with that I took an idea, started fleshing out the ideation and the design for it, but then I went on holiday for 2 weeks, came back thinking, no, it's completely wrong, you know, and then and it happens, you know, but because we were able to react and respond to those problems straight away, we were able to clear those concerns up straight away, give them something that was definitely closer or not exactly what they wanted at the same time. So just having those lines of communication open at all times is super important. Being adaptable and understanding, like, even if it's something that I spent a lot of time and effort into designing and I was super proud of it and it's not what they want, I've just got to admit that it's their project, and at the end of the day I've got to deliver what they want, so it's just also meeting their requirements as well. So yeah, it's all about just being resilient and adaptable and just making sure the communications are super clear and all channels are open at all times between yourselves and the partner.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so a little bit of a different perspective on the same theme here. So when I was working at Unity, I did a lot of work on the server hosting side of things. Dealt with a lot of developers. Would be easily talking to 100 in a year, kind of thing. And it was really eye-opening in the different styles and the way that the studios worked. And one key example of this was that because we were doing server hosting, there was no front-end stuff at all. You effectively didn't even need to know what the game looked like. When we went on to calls and we said, well, what's the game about? Tell us about the game. They're like, well, the developers that didn't want to share that context or didn't want you to get invested into the game, to Gavin's point, they refuse. Like, you can't get any keys, you can't look, you can't be part of it. And it was an absolute privilege working with some of the developers that were like, yeah, jump on a playtest, we play every Friday. Here's the game, this is the vision of what we're trying to do. You can see, and it improves not only the ethos around working on the project, you understand the context, and every little bit of context matters. So if you're grouping up into party player and you're going to jump into a server, guess what? That affects the back-end services. You need to tell people how the game feels because it's an objective experience and it's an individual. You can't necessarily translate that to code every time.
I think that's an important point. Just out of interest, is everybody in the games industry at the moment or looking to get into the games industry that we've got here? Show of hands, please. Are you here for a nice day out, or are you here because you are a developer yourself? Yeah. So, because we're all here because we like games. I mean, some of the people here could be like, doing different jobs and traveling the world in private jets and earning stupid amounts of money, but they're not working for a finance company. They're not working for something that, they're not doing it because it's a job. They're doing it because it's something they're passionate about, something that we've got into the games industry for, which I imagine is the same for you all. We're here because we love games, and this is a really good point. Alex, in terms of, there might be some developers in the room, from your perspective, in terms of how you're treated, how you're either treated as part of the team or treated as an adjunct to the team, how is your experience?
So, generally, I know the people who I'm going to be working for. So, or have known them for a long time. So I do exactly what Vicky was saying, really. I'm almost always, I'll turn up to the stand-up every morning with the rest of the team. Because the thing is, if you're porting... there's one thing about porting is there's two different approaches to it. One is the game is completely finished. We don't want to do it. Here is a game. Please put it on another machine, right? I don't generally do those kind of ports. I generally do we've got to hit a ship date with Xbox, PlayStation and Switch all there at the same time. Come and help us finish the game. So what will happen is I'll do the ports and then they'll be like, oh, we need some stuff doing and all of our programmers are busy. Alex, will you fix the gameplay? So I do, that makes me sound really big-headed. Sometimes I've done that in the past, but, it's... I kind of like being there in the team. Because the thing is, if you're porting something, it's kind of a dull job and very specific as well. The pay's good. Not a lot of people want to do it or know how to do it, generally speaking, so that's good. But the thing is, it's subtle. Like Kurt was saying, it's the same amount of things about the weird rules about PlayStation's, what dialogues have to pop up and whatever, have specific ways in which they need to happen in a given game rather than, you can't just completely make it generic. I've tried. So, I make a middleware that makes porting way easier, which is what I use to port games. And so probably 9/10 of stuff can, but the other 1/10 absolutely is very game specific, and you can't just ship that the same.
Okay.
So it's also nice to be around people, a bit. I mean, I don't work in offices. I charge double for that. So I like to just be on a call,
Yeah, from my own experience, I couldn't do freelancing forever. I just missed talking to people and that physical interaction. It's just crazy. Sorry, I'm just checking the time. I'm being terribly rude, I know, on my phone during a call. So we've got 10 minutes left. I'm just going to check if you could just hold that for me. It doesn't mean you're going to have to answer the next question. It's like blind man's buff. In terms of questions, we are going to have to wrap up soon. I am going to leave lots of time, so no pressure on you for Q&A at the end. But in terms of the most important factors for being a freelancer for yourself, what are the most important things for you to focus on as an individual to sell yourself and to engage with and retain those?
That's all of the questions, Phil.
Yeah. So in terms of retaining your clients over time and making sure you maintain that rapport with them.
So, I mean, you just have to be. The thing with being freelance is if you're in a regular job, you can not be that professional sometimes and get told off for it. And there are some people who get through life like that. Being a freelancer, you cannot. In a freelance job, you have to be 120% professional at all times. You have to be on the ball. People will still not never use you again if you make a mistake, because every human makes mistakes, right? But you have to be, as close to perfect and awesome as you can at all times. That's one downside to it, is you can never just switch off, really. But I don't really mind that. That's in my nature, he said smugly. I don't know. It's not like I try to do that. I don't like to let people down. If I promise something, I just have to do it. It's how I'm wired. I'm probably neuroatypical. I've never been diagnosed. It's fine.
You're in the games industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, statistically, it's highly likely. But what else was there in there? Well, working with. So the most important thing for me about working with a client is whether or not I can trust them. And that involves day one, sitting down, here is my contract.
Yes.
This is what you will sign if you want me to work for you. We might haggle about it a bit with a lawyer, but basically once that's done, it's done. You don't want to... Also, I think as a freelancer, I would argue that you want to be a limited company. You definitely, certainly if you're working for a company like Activision, the last thing you want to do as a programmer is work for them as an individual, because if something goes wrong, they will sue you. Yeah. Right, if you've got a company, they'll sue your company and your company will go bust, and that's fine. But if Activision sue you, that is a big problem, So, yeah, limited company, really, and contracts. Yeah, don't do anything on a handshake. It has to be real and legit.
Liability insurance, we're calling it.
Yeah.
As a service provider, as someone serving... Got to phrase this really carefully. Doing work for others or bringing the work in, what's your experience? What are you looking for in a partner?
The first thing that came to mind was a portfolio, right? For an individual or for a company. We need to know that from a Unity perspective, it was always the case that a outsourcing provider was coming in to fix a specific problem or onboard a customer or create a wrapper or a portal or whatever it would be to allow the user to use the services, right? And if you're putting them that close to a customer that is potentially at a corporate level, you need to be very sure that you're happy with that provider. So it would be quite common to have dozens of calls and conversations and real-life meetups and talk about architecture before even entertaining that. But the benefit of going through that process, getting comfortable, means that suddenly that outsourced provider, and I guess a freelancer in this context as well, would be used a lot, repeatedly, a trusted source that you could always go back to, somebody that's proved their salt.
Brilliant, thank you. Good answer. In terms of being dependable and trustworthy, and yes, both of you have echoed that. Vicky, as a company working in co-development with others and now as part of a larger organisation, what do you feel are the most important factors for you and the team to have and promote?
So in terms of my team and everything else like that, adaptability and flexibility is absolutely key. So whilst we as a studio can arrange, those higher ups will arrange the contract and decide who we get to work with and what our roles and responsibilities are when it comes to working with our clients. Us further down the chain, it's like working for a company. You have to work on the work that's assigned to you, and for the most part, it's fine. You get on with it. You know that you're going to gain a lot of experience from it, and it might be a project that you're not 100%. It might be for a game that you don't particularly enjoy or a particular style and everything like that, but you are still going to go gain experience from it as well. So for me, it's just being flexible and understanding and adaptable to whatever is needed from you, a willingness to learn and gain expertise from other people as well. So it might be that you might have a little bit of experience in a particular area that you're asked to work on and you're asked to focus on, but then you want to really push yourself to learn more and become the expert sort of thing. So you're trying to build up your skill set, especially as a designer, to gain, so you can work on all sorts of different projects in all sorts of different areas. So yeah, adaptability, willingness to learn, resilience, and it's quite an interesting one. I touch on the topic about the attachment to a project and the commitment to a project as well. If it's your own company and it's your own game, you probably are a lot more emotionally attached to it as well. As a co-dev, you're literally brought on to do one specific subset of a game, and then you're off it before the game's probably released, or maybe you are fortunate enough to work on the game as it's released, sort of thing. So it's being able to give the game 100% of your time and your attention and your engagement, but then also being able to disengage from that when the time is right, when the contract is end, for you to move on to the next one, so you can then give that one all your attention and your engagement, everything. So try not to be too emotionally attached to projects is probably something as well, because it can be hard. You can work on some really interesting, engaging projects and you love every minute of it, but then you know that your time with that project is going to be limited and you are going to have to kind of switch your mind and go on to something else later on. So I'd probably say all those kind of factors.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Gareth, from the other side of the coin, what are you looking for in a company that would be coming to you for services, offering services?
Yeah, so there's some with my kind of corporate hat on, and that is you need to be reliable, you need to be good quality, and you need to be in the right price range. So that's obvious. But I think for me, there's probably the three things that personally I'm more interested in, and that is communication. Like, I want you to be part of that team. I want you to communicate to the team. I want you to talk to us as much as possible, understand what we're doing, tell us what you're doing. And sometimes that might be, hey, we're stuck, we need some help. Sometimes it might be, hey, we were stuck, but we did this thing, and we've decided to kind of move forward by making these choices. And that comes to my second thing, which is kind of, you still need to be independent. If you're working as an outsourced team, if problems arise, sometimes you might be in a different time zone. Sometimes you might not be able to kind of get in touch. What I don't want is a whole team of 30 people just sat there not doing anything that we're paying for. So I'm expecting you to try your hardest to be able to achieve what you're doing and work as an independent team, but also communicate with our internal team as much as possible. So that for me is kind of communication and then independence. But the other thing, it has to be reliable. Like, I have to put trust in you. Whenever we're normally doing things with external teams, we will do a test, which is a fully paid test, but it will be a small part of the project that we're doing, and say, hey, can you work on this for 3 months, 4 months, deliver this thing? And if that all goes well, we're going to expand that engagement with you, and we're going to give you 10 times the amount of work. Which means that you need to prove the reliability early on, but you need to continue to improve that reliability. Most of the contracts we have, we pay for contracts, but we pay in like a monthly rolling month kind of contract. So if something happens and we needed to say you're not delivering, that contract could end in a month, which could be 30 people that's working for your company that we're not now using. So if the reliability isn't there, the communication isn't there, then that's the thing that makes it most difficult to work with an outsourcer, because you just don't know what's going on.
Brilliant, thank you. We are running down, and it is coming up to 12 o'clock. I appreciate you've all been very patient and listened to the conversation that we've been having. I don't want you to miss your lunch. Are there any questions from... Hello.
I have a question that I need some advice from you guys. I don't know what job title I fall under. And I'm trying to, so I predominantly work in education and create educational games for universities. But I do like the UI, the UX, the concept. It can be a digital game, a board game. I work with and manage directors. I create all the ancillary pitch deck documents, any video assets, animations. I run the test sessions and everything, but I don't know who I am.
So basically, you're a games company in a yeah,
Okay.
right.
Game director?
It's kind of moving towards production direction kind of role. I mean, that coordination role, that being the linchpin, the contact point between so many different departments. But if you're also doing those jobs as well, it's difficult. You're either going to be a really good contractor going in and offering services in a wide range of areas, or you'll be specialising in one of those that you particularly enjoy and then being able to pivot into the other ones when needed. I mean...
Yeah, I'd say, hearing all of that, it sounds like you're an independent developer in that you're working on your own, doing everything, which means that there are companies out there looking for that. There are companies out there saying, oh, I've got an idea for a game. We might not make games. We might do something else. We might be a cereal company or something, but we're looking to create some kind of app, some kind of game to try and support. That is where an independent developer comes in. But I'd also say in larger companies, you could come in and look at it in a holistic point of way and say, I can see this bit over here is not working right. I might go over there and help. Because I think having a broad knowledge of how to make a game as a whole is still very good. I think in larger studios, that's quite rare because the roles become so specialist. But still coming in at a higher level and looking at it holistically when people need help. So yeah, I just say independent developer across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got anything else to add? apart from...
It defies description. Broad.
Yeah.
It defies simple categorizer. I would say you could arguably say game designer and just have done with it because, like, arguably, because you do the rest of it, you just put all of the rest of it as bullet points on your CV, and you. But yeah, you could definitely say like more than just a regular designer. But again, there's not really a job title that encompasses that. Make one up. Yeah. Stick the definition underneath. There you go. That's my advice.
For what it's worth, I fit into that category of I can do all these things, but I don't actually, in terms of a job title, it's sometimes hard to pin down what it is that you want to do because you enjoy doing everything. Any more questions? I did see other hands up. The gentleman there. Oh, hello.
Hello. Right. Everything's been super lovely from what you've been saying, but I've got questions to find out what's going on when things go wrong. So from the hiring side of things, so when you're outsourcing the team, what's the worst thing that you've ever done or incorrectly? And from the other side of the coin, what's the mistake that someone asking you to do something has made that you would be like, I wish they hadn't done that, I wish they'd given me that bit of information or whatever. So just trying to see when it goes wrong, how it can be fixed.
Thanks, Drew. That's a really nice question.
That's an insane question. I'm going to answer really succinctly because I can see an end of session sign right in front of me. But assuming, honestly, is the worst thing. If you, I come from an architectural background, and I use the rule of three for architecture. So you have essentially 3 chances to put architecture in front of a customer, essentially. One should be as polished as it can be because the other 2 are going to be refining down. So if you get to the second one and you need a fourth, generally you tend to assume, and that means you haven't got enough detail at the start of the engagement. So that is the worst thing that you can do is assume. You need to get all the details or get a contextual understanding. There are situations where the person that you're asking might not have an answer and you might have to assume, but you need to have that discussion because if you make that decision on your side and don't explain why you've made it, to Gareth's point earlier, you're going to have the same result. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah, brilliant. We are going to have to end it there. Come and find us. We're all around. There's a Maverick stand downstairs. There's a TJ right in the corner, so on the opposite side. In the middle, so forming a triangle, is myself. Kurt is around. Yeah, Kurt is around, drinking coffee, leaning against walls, and being knowledgeable.
Being nonchalant.
Nonchalant, good word. And Alex, are you around all day?
Yeah, I'm
Brilliant.
doing a talk later.
Hey, of course you are. Yeah.
It's probably not going to be that exciting, but you can come if you like.
I wish I could. Right, just for the chance to sit down as well as the interesting talk. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Just a round of applause for my wonderful panelists. Thank you.